Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I just read Temple of Silence by Richard Strachan, and it's pretty good. Temple of Silence is a semi-direct sequel of Hallowed Ground, and once again follows Doralia and Galen Van Denst on a quest to stop evil. That being said, it also heavily incorporates the lore of the separate short stories, so it is definitely recommended to read those before picking up this novel if you want to get the most out of it. Anyways, Temple of Silence sees her favorite family travel through the swamplands of Gur, during which they end up at an ominous temple. The priests here have taken vows of silence and actually cut their lips after speaking in atonement. But more importantly, a monster seems to attack the temple at regular intervals, and thus the dynamic duo goes on a quest to kill it. Now, if fighting against a horrible monstrosity capable of fighting off a temple of warrior priests isn't daunting enough of a task, things get much more complicated as a tide of secrets, conspiracies, and buried pieces of history come to light. So if you want to know the truth behind the dark secrets of both the city of Moonhallow as well as the Temple of Silence, and if you want to know if the Densters can make it out alive this time, you will have to read the book for yourself. First of all, I'm happy to see the return of the Van Dents, as they are some of the most entertaining witch hunters found in the Black Library. And that is quite a compliment, considering half the books the Black Library releases are about a witch hunter of sorts. What really sets these two apart is that they are nice people. Galen especially falls quite outside of the typical hero character type. The Van Dents won't hesitate to execute people in cold blood or to commit gruesome acts to get what they want. They really show why the Order of Vizier is feared throughout the realms. This makes them rather interesting to read about, as they can often do things so out of left field you really wouldn't expect it of a protagonist. It furthermore contributes to the gritty grimdark feeling of the Warhammer setting. Oh, and don't even get me started on the banter and the one-liners of these two. I know Eisenhorn's authority quote gets memed a lot, but these two can also produce quote the mouthful. Another nice part about this novel is that it plays a lot with the question of the morality of the Order of Vizier. Witch hunters travel the lands and mercilessly execute evil wherever they find it. They don't wait out to observe or deal with the consequences of their actions. They don't give second chances, and they definitely don't deal in lesser evils. Sure, they sacrifice the possibility of living a normal life and risk their lives at every twist and turn to protect the weak from the horrors of these realms. But at the end of the day, don't they just cause as much pain and suffering, if not more, than the evils they fight? It is an interesting proposition, and one the novel leaves the reader to judge upon for themselves. Do you think the Van Dents are the heroes of the story? Should they have acted in the way they did? Maybe yes, maybe no. You get to decide, and the novel goes to great lengths to provide examples and arguments for either side. But while the philosophical element of the novel was decently written, the mystery was handled a bit less well in my opinion. The reason for this is that the book has a lot of scenes written from the perspectives of characters outside of the Van Dents. These characters know things that the hunters do not, and thus for them there are quite some mysteries and surprises. However, because we get to see from the perspectives of these not so forthcoming characters, we know a lot more than the protagonists. And this basically ruins all these surprises and mysteries. Half the fun of a mystery book is figuring out for yourself who did what or why a thing happened in that way. This book, however, flat out tells you and then sees the protagonists figure it out chapters or even half a book later. I didn't mind these alternative perspectives a lot because they were sometimes quite entertaining or emotional, but there is a bit of a wasted potential here to write an engaging mystery segment. There was also a big romance subplot with almost half a dozen characters involved, love triangles, secret admirers and all that stuff, but it just didn't really do it for me either. One reason for that is that you don't really care for any of the characters involved. Without exception, all of them are really shitty people, with most only turning out to be worse as the story goes on, so there isn't really a lot of shipping involved, so to speak. But another reason is that it also feels a bit overdone. Like almost all classical Roman story arcs are placed into this novel, albeit in a bit of a condensed format, even though the book itself only really ranks this like on place 5 of the priority list. First, it is a witch hunter action tale. Then there's some philosophy and the Van Dents get some character growth. Then there's a mystery tale. Then there's a horror tale. And only then does romance really start to play a role. I much prefer the way book 1 handled it, where we had some shenanigans at the start with the Rogue and Doralia, but the book quickly went back to focusing on the main plot again. In this book I feel like they either should have done way more with it, or just left it out altogether. The way it was done here, not so great. Talking about the first book, there's one thing this book did a lot better, and that is the way it handled combat. Sure, here too, there's quite some chopping, shooting and punching, but in book 1 it really formed a big detriment, as almost a third of it was non-stop fighting during the Siege of Excelsis, or at least like the 10th Siege of Excelsis. Here instead it is more spread out and written in a shorter manner, so while the long bolter porn of book 1 made me almost fall asleep, I'm happy to say that it is absent here. Just a shame it has now been replaced by a boring romance section and a self-spoiling mystery. Regardless, while these subplots were not the best, the overall plot was quite good. We see the witch hunters struggle mentally after taking down their arch nemesis in the previous book. This affects both of them differently, and the book has a nice character arc for both of them. But we also see a bunch of twists and turns that cause them to struggle in a more direct physical way, often being outnumbered and outgunned in a way that almost plays off the typical hero arcs in a satirical manner. So again, while the book has some weak points, I did mostly enjoy reading it and looked forward to continue reading it. And finally, I want to say that the ending really caught me off guard. I won't say what it is for spoiler reasons, but if the ending means what I think it does, it is quite a big ball move by the author. So really curious to see what will happen in the next story of Doralia and Galen. Altogether, Temple of Silence gets 4 to 5 witch hunters. It is an excellent continuation from the previous novel and the short stories. It does a lot of things well, from horror to humor and from badassery to philosophy. The overly long boulder porn scenes have been replaced, but a self-spoiling mystery and a romance between various bad guys isn't the best replacement for it, but it is nice to see the author trying new things, and the wild ending definitely leaves me excited for book 3. So if you like book 1, I can guarantee that you will enjoy this one as well. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and click ringing the bell to appease the Great Horned Rat. For more lore content, please check my main channel and leave any book recommendations in the comments down below. I gotta get back to reading the next book.